Grant Udinski may end up being the Browns' next head coach. So my guy, Tony Wiggins from Locked On Jags, is here to tell us about him. We'll do it next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. My guy, Tony Wiggins, is here to tell us all about Grant Udinski. Plus, we dive into the Jaguars offense and what he could potentially bring to Cleveland if he was to get hired. And without saying it, John Harbaugh to Cleveland, that dream seems very much dead. I do want to thank you for being on every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network, and it's all thanks to you. Also, today's episode brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Excited to be touching base here with Tony Wiggins. The Browns have interviewed a handful of candidates, some that are young, up-and-coming guys. And one of those guys hails from Jacksonville right now, and Grant Udinski, the offensive coordinator under Liam Cohen. And so, listen, I wanted to go right to the source. I wanted to get my guy Tony in here to sort of tell us a little bit about Grant Udinski and what he brings to the table. So I guess I'll just start with that. Who is Tony Grant Udinski, and what was his involvement with the Jaguars offense? And we saw the resurgent offense that they obviously had this season.
Yeah, so Grant represents for me something that I have a pet peeve about. And what that is folks always love to want a play caller, and they think that being an offensive coordinator is all play calling, where it's really mostly about teaching. If your head coach is the play caller, I always tell people they spend 18 to 19 hours a day at the facility, 6 days a week. And then on game day, they play the game for about 3 hours. So when you add all of those hours up, that they literally spend 100 hours working on game plan and working and breaking and teaching. And they spend 3 hours, but half on offense, half on, so an hour and a half play calling. But most people love to just focus on the play calling aspect. What I'll tell you is Trevor Lawrence says, I've never met a person like Grant. He breaks things down. He makes things clear. So it sounds like first and foremost, he is a teacher. And that is extremely important, especially if you're dealing with a quarterback like Trevor that had numerous offensive coordinators and just wasn't able to extract. They weren't able to extract the absolute best of them and put them in a confident situation until this year. And then the rest of it is what he also is an organizer and a game plan manager and someone who breaks down and is able to come up with a lot of those things. So to me, he just represents another guy in that tree, whether you want to call it the O'Connell or the Shanahan or, the Sean McVay tree. A lot of those guys that have gone on to be successful did not call plays. McDaniel didn't call plays before he went to Miami. And I know I'm using an example of a dude that got fired, but you get the point. The point is they're all just teachers, and they love to insulate themselves with other guys just like that. Now, he'll be missed if he leaves here. However, Liam Cohen has other guys in the hierarchy and, on the coaching tree already here, and I'm sure he'll go out and add someone else. That's the thing that they do, man. They don't just align themselves from, and you guys know about alignment or not alignment, because I don't know who likes Shador or who doesn't, from the owner to the GM to the coach. But what it is they don't just align themselves from a front office to coaching staff through the GM. They align themselves in their coaching staff as well, so that they make sure that everything is being taught with a consistent level.
It's a really good, thoughtful answer to that question in terms of his involvement in things. And I want to come back to that here specific to game day in a second. But I think one of the things that, I've heard a lot of Browns fans say when they're thinking about what the next coach needs to look like or have, and you hear, I'm sure you've heard this too, all the times that Jacksonville's gone through a coach. They want a leader of men, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know that all the time going into hiring like a new guy. You know what I mean? Like you've never seen him do it. And so there's kind of a gamble that comes with that. But what can you say? And I think you alluded to this a little bit with how Trevor Lawrence talks about him. but what can you say about his ability to lead that locker room, sort of command that group, and be that CEO that a team potentially needs?
Yeah, so I think he comes from a lineage of people that, while they're players, coaches, and they operate in pure honesty. I warn people. I was like one of the first people around here when Liam Cohen got the job, and he has this little Richie Cunningham face, and he looks like a kid, and he said Duval the wrong way, and people were like, "Oh God!" Once I went down there and I met them, I told them that is not Opie Taylor. If you don't do the job, they're gonna find somebody to do it. Case in point, Brian Thomas Jr. was dropping balls. They went out and traded for Jacoby Myers and gave Jacoby Myers a contract extension. Parker Washington started the year as the number 4 receiver behind Diami Brown, behind all of these other guys, even Travis Hunter when he was still healthy, as well as BTJ. At the end of the year, Parker Washington was sitting right there with Jacoby Myers as the other really, really good receiver that allowed the Jaguars to win 13 games and come within a minute and a half of actually advancing to this weekend's playoff action. So what that tells me is, yeah, I'm cool, but we ain't that cool. If you don't get the job done, we all gonna get fired. Dude, we gotta get other people involved until we can bring you around. So don't get confused by the nice nature in which they speak. Everybody doesn't always have to talk with fire and brimstone. That does not mean that they aren't a leader of men. And I think what we've seen with the culture change and the shift here in Jacksonville, as it pertains to Cleveland, and we've been in this situation in Jacksonville where you don't know who you need to ask. I do a national show, Locked on NFL. I can't tell if the coach, the GM, or the owner likes the quarterbacks. Nobody knows what's going on. That will not happen with someone like Grant Udinski, who comes from this tree. I will be intrigued, however, to find out whether or not he likes the current group of quarterbacks that's there, because a lot of the things that they do is here. It's all about pre-snap. It's recognition. It's sending guys in motion. And it's about, okay, now let it rip once you see what you see pre-snap. Some people like to play the game and just let the game come to them. I don't think that that's what he is. He is, you better tell me that you understand it before I put you out there, because this ain't going to be about vibes. It's going to be about what you know.
Last thing in terms of this initial conversation on Grant, we're going to continue this on the other side of the break here, obviously, but when it comes to the game day part of it, and you mentioned it, like people get too caught up sometimes in like the play calling aspect and who's doing that, whatever. What role did he play in helping build the game plan and then execute it on game day? I assume Liam Combs calling plays, but what was his role sort of on game day?
So Liam actually said at the beginning of the year that he had to actually get used to not just being wired and dialed in just on play calling and game plan. And he actually mentioned one time, it could have been to me or it could have been a bunch of us, I don't quite remember. He said that's the thing about having a guy like Grant. There are things that when you're the head coach, you got to do all of this stuff, right? You got to be a little bit everywhere. You got to pop your head in all of these different rooms. He spent a whole ton of time with Trevor Lawrence, and he spent a whole lot of time, obviously, sitting at the side of Liam Cohen to make sure that they were attacking the defense correctly. Now, I'd be lying to you. I got a press pass, but it does not give me a headset. So I would be lying to you if I told you I knew exactly how involved he was in every single aspect that was going on. But if you read the room, it sounds like, based on what Trevor says and what Liam Cohen has said, that Grant Udinski is like a mad scientist. And he's one of those people that had his fingerprint all over the game plan each and every weekend.
I got a few more questions for Tony about the Jags offense, how it changed this year. Another thing about Grant Udinski specifically. So if you want to learn more about a potential candidate to be the Browns' next head coach, stick around. We got that coming up next on the Locked on Browns podcast. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run a business and think, you know what? There's a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications, because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one singular place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text and share from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personalized. It's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted more than 90,000 from Solo. Listen, if you want to upgrade your business communication system, Quo has a deal for you. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Today's episode also brought to you by the Ultimate QB. The draft picks and positions are set for the upcoming draft. Have you ever wished that maybe you could become a pro quarterback? Getting drafted first overall by, I don't know, the Browns aren't really the number one overall pick, but what if they were? Well, now you can. There's a mobile game that's just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In the game, you get to step into the cleats of the number one draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness, to help turn around a failing franchise into a dynasty. This is the number one QB career mode game on mobile app stores, and it introduces the most realistic environment with full career control. Sign contracts, train and upgrade yourself, build chemistry with and evolve your teammates. Give input to your GM on roster moves, play the actual game in 2D, and rise through the ranks to become a pro football legend. Ultimate QB is free to play, has no ads, and works 100% offline. Perfect for when you want to sneak in a quick game or two on the go. Just head on over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com and search for Ultimate QB in the App Store. And we've got something special for listeners of this show. Use the promo code LOCKEDON, all caps, in the game store to get a free boost to start your career. Ultimate QB Football Legend QB1. It's your legacy. Back out of here with Tony Wiggins on this latest episode of the Locked On Browns podcast. A couple of the questions I had for you just in relation to the Jags offense, and one more sort of specific to Grant Udinski himself. What was different about the Jags offense this year? Because, man, I thought the Doug Peterson hire at the time was going to be a really good move for them. I thought it was going to be something that sort of got Trevor Lawrence on track. And towards the tail end of his time there, he had regressed. And it seemed like this group together, Liam Cohen, Grant Udinski, and others, they really unlocked something with him. So what did you notice that just changed? What would he bring to the table if he were to get the job here in Cleveland?
Competence. Something that looks like a computer program. You remember those old computers? I'm dating myself. When you had the disk and you stick it in, and it was the same thing every single time. Now, it doesn't mean it looked the same, but there was just this competent way that they were going to go out and go about their business. It didn't look like they were trying to throw things against the wall to see what sticks. It seems like there's a plan of action, there's a way that they're going to attack. And one thing that Liam said today in the exit interviews, I think him and James Gladstone sort of kind of hinted at it. They don't have a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. They have whoever is open is going to get the ball, and we are going to attack the individual team that we're playing this day. There was one point, I think a game against Denver this year, where it may have been the Denver game, or it may have been the game against the Colts at the end of the year. On one drive, 7 different Jaguars caught a ball. That's just what they do. And they use multiple running backs and multiple tight ends on a lot of their formations. There are some things that they'll do where you'll see 2 tailbacks in the game at the same time. And you'll see a lot of jet sweep action. Whether or not they actually make the pitch or not, it's always them about setting things up. And everything they do is with such intent. And if you think about it, even with the bad quarterback, the Minnesota Vikings were kind of that same way, especially when they actually had competent quarterback play. And the Rams, it doesn't always work, but that's where these dudes basically come from. The KOC tree, which is the Sean McVay tree as well. And they really seem like they put a lot of emphasis on teaching and less on things like, okay, I got this big X receiver who's an alpha dog. Just throw it down there if he's one-on-one. You won't see a lot of that stuff. You won't see the willy-nilly playground football thing. Everything seems like it's intentional. If they need 5, the routes go to 6. It drives me crazy on 3rd and 7 and they throw a 3-yard route. They don't do that here anymore. If you need 5, they get 6. If you need 7, they're going to get 8. And they're gonna challenge every level of the field. Under Doug Peterson, the Jaguars never threw the ball to the middle of the field. And you could say that was a personnel issue. But now every single aspect from sideline to sideline in the passing game gets stressed. And you don't know where it's going to come from. And while it looks the same every week, if this makes sense, it looks different every week, but the same. But the same is how they move about it, the mechanics of it. The difference is based on the opponent that they're playing, they're going to attack that opponent's weakness. Now, there was one time this year that they kind of regretted doing that, and that was against Seattle. Seattle had a banged-up secondary. So the Jaguars went into the game throwing the ball all around the lot. That was a mistake, and they lost. They should have just and Liam said after the game, we kind of went into it with a little bit of thinking that we were going to attack their weakness as opposed to playing to our strengths. So that's the thing. Everything is well thought out. Everything is planned. And once people catch on to it, it's really, really competent. I do like the fact that if I think about it in the framework of Cleveland, you got 2 tight ends. I don't know if you'll have 2 after the end of it, but you got 2 guys like that love to catch up. You got 2 backs already, right? So now it comes down to, okay, what are we going to do at wide receiver? Is it Jerry Jeudy? Some of the things you saw him go through this year that weren't as consistent as you like. He's a route runner. I've seen him do it from high school and college. The thing is, someone like that can get open, release off the line, stack receivers, and be able to turn and catch the ball while they're running, not facing the quarterback, while they're running to be able to catch the ball. That's what makes Puka Nacua so good. That's what made Cooper Kupp so good. That's what makes Justin Jefferson, other than the fact that those guys are tremendously talented. Jordan Addison, they always seem to catch the ball in stride with their hands. And I think that the offense, because it's designed to put stress from sideline to sideline, from hash to hash, they're allowed to do that because they catch the ball without being in a lot of traffic.
One thing he's going to, if he were to get the job here in Cleveland, or whoever gets the job here in Cleveland, is certainly going to be looked to do is develop a quarterback. Whether that's Shedeur Sanders, whether that's somebody else, that's the thing that's eluded the Browns for so many years now. What role did Udinsky play in that? Because I know you mentioned, what Trevor Lawrence said about him, and it sounds like they certainly have worked very closely, but like, how much credit does he get? What role did he play in sort of helping Trevor Lawrence take that next step this year?
Well, and I might overstep here, but this is just my opinion from what I saw. When you hear Liam say, man, he's good, man, you just got to let it rip. And then you see him demonstratively in the Cincinnati game and game 2 telling Trevor, hey, put it on his chest. Like he's throwing it in traffic, but guys are having to reach for it. And while you should catch the ball if it touches you on your hands, Liam still told Trevor, put it on his chest. And you read his lips. I remember one time in training camp during the session, and I can tell you this because it was when we could actually record, they completed a little pass while they were in shells and 7-on-7. And they did it 2 or 3 times, and they were catching these little crossers. And I heard Liam say, come on, man, throw the ball down the field. Like, try it. You know what I mean? So Grant isn't that. I think Liam is the vibes overall guy, play caller. And Grant was mostly with his piece of paper, and he's teaching, constantly talking. Now, that might change if he becomes the head coach, and maybe he becomes a little bit more like Liam. But in that specific role, and in the role that you have heard Liam Cohen and Shieldhouse and all the rest of these dudes talk about McVay and what they've learned, the head coach puts a lot of stress on his number 2. The head coach really makes them design plays, and you really have to know your software, and you're going to be working on things and designing things and bringing it. And it's like a factory for offense. They're all like mad scientists. And the thing is that's why I say competence. It might take a while. If you're a player that's used to just willy-nilly and going out, it's going to be hard for you, because I really do believe that what they do is they want you to think, they want you to get clear pictures pre-snap. And because everyone has talked and raved about the fact that Grant Udinski is this man, I heard people in Minnesota saying the same thing. They were sorry to see him leave. I think he's the preparation guy, and I think he's absolutely what you want in a head coach, and I think he's going to be a good head coach.
Last thing before I let you go, the one thing I think people are looking at and maybe get held up by is, hey, he's only 30. I don't know that like you're ever ready, right? Like you don't know until you know, like when you become a head coach. But how ready do you think he is, even at the age of 30, to be in this role and do something different than he's ever done before?
Age ain't nothing but a number. Throwing down ain't nothing but a thing, man. That's Aaliyah, God bless her. But the thing is it's about your experience. And you're seeing people. I try not to subscribe to age. I try not to subscribe to leader of men. I try not to say we need an offensive-minded coach. Because everybody that says that stuff, I go, okay, so you wouldn't take Mike McDaniel or Mike Vrabel right now. Would you? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Stefanski was an offensive-minded coach, and it didn't work. Doug Peterson was an offensive-minded coach. Played quarterback in the NFL, and it just did not work. I think you need a combination of things, but mainly in today's game, it depends what kind of organization do you want to be. And I think the Jaguars were ripe to turn this thing around and start being a smart organization. The way you saw the Chiefs, the way you see even Buffalo right now. I got to mention them because they just beat the Jags. And then the way you saw how it was with Tom Brady. So when you listen to Tom Brady and Romo and Greg Olson and all of these guys, or if you listen to the Manning cast and you hear them talking about little things, well, that's what these guys are. That's what these new coaches are. They're breaking it down. I'm telling you, man, you go to the press, if you ask the right question at a press conference, oh, you'll talk about cans. They'll talk about cans. Like, for instance, Greg Newsom got beat the first. Shout out to Greg Newsom in the Brown. He got beat by Jackson Smith and Jigba the first game he played when he got here for a 61-yard touchdown. And at the presser after the game, they say, well, did you put too much on him? He just got here. He blew the coverage. And Lynn said he ain't blown no coverage. He said it was a great play call. We had outside leverage, and there was one thing that could beat us, and they did exactly what they were supposed to do. That wasn't. So that's the thing. Even when something goes against them, they always look at it from an educational standpoint, and they seem to learn from it and move forward. So what you're going to get is you're going to get competence. You're going to get a better players that's going to have a better understanding of what they're doing. And for the media and the fans, you're going to get absolute transparency when he answers questions. It's not going to be vague. It's not going to duck any smoke. They're going to tell you, and I attribute that to them being so sure about who they are and what they want to be that they don't mind the transparency and that they don't consider it a vulnerability when they explain stuff. So sometimes you got to, get your little dictionary out about offense, and it makes you go home and learn a little bit more when you hear them talk. But that is exactly what they're trying to aim for on the field. Smart, intelligent football players that only do the thing, whatever their superpower is, they have to be nothing more than themselves. And I think it's a breath of fresh air.
This is why he's the best. This is why we wanted him on. He gave us some real in-depth stuff to discuss and talk about when we come back. Plus, I think without telling us, John Harbaugh is not coming to Cleveland. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes all the difference. That's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits in quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. In my house, dinner is probably one of the hardest meals of the day, if not the hardest meal of the day. My wife changes her mind about what she wants to eat, or we simply run out of ideas. But Home Chef offers over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. And more importantly, it saves me money and time. Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. I know you want that free dessert. I'm a dessert guy myself, so it's an enticing offer. Must be an active subscriber to receive the free dessert. Today's episode also brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen by other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. Instead of struggling to get your job posts seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners to this show get $75 sponsored jobs credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. just go ahead over to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. I thought that was awesome from Tony Wiggins, my guy over at Locked On Jags. Some really good stuff to say. And listen, he painted Grant Udinski in a way that feels like, age be damned. He's ready for this. And he has the offensive prowess to do it. And he comes from the tree that everybody's enamored with, the Sean McVay, now Liam Cohen, Kevin O'Connell sort of ilk, and what all that looks like. I like the fact that he talked about like the offense just looking organized and competent. And those are things that we need here in Cleveland, frankly. Like the Kevin Stefanski offense lost the plot towards the end of his time here. There was a lot of penalties constantly, week over week. Those things weren't getting cleaned up. You didn't understand like what the goal was on certain plays, like whether Shador's the quarterback or somebody else is the quarterback. You just want things to look cleaner. You want an offense based around like just playing to your strengths and utilizing the weapons that you have. The Browns didn't have a lot of those this year. But if you're looking for somebody who's going to sort of innovate and change the offense around, he feels like a good fit, or it could be a good fit. And I'm going to be honest. I talked about it on Wednesday's show. Based on Andrew Berry's comments, where he talked about, the possibility of, like thinking outside the box, and how Kevin was their only interview in 19 and or the only interview for Kevin was the Browns in 19 and 20, but he got hired. Like, this is the type of out of the box move I think they'd make. They would make a hire of like this young up and coming guy, get ahead of that curve that everyone's going to be on to try to hire him in the years to come, and just make him their guy now. I could 100% see that happening. We'll see if it actually comes to fruition, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, I'm fascinated to see how it all goes down, who they identify in the end, and we're still in the middle of this thing. But based off that conversation with Tony, I think you as a fan, other fans should probably come away feeling like he could be a good fit here. At least I did. And there was a lot of good insight there from Tony Wiggins. Last thing, and listen, I wanted John Harbaugh from the second he was let go. Like, that was my white whale. I talked about that on the show. And I still want John Harbaugh. I would love if there was an opportunity for him to come to Cleveland. And I was holding out hope for it. Here's what I would say. Nobody has flat out reported that the Browns are out of the conversation, like that he's told them, nope, not happening, never going to do it. But the recent reporting I have seen is that Harbaugh is already kicking off in-person interviews. He's with the Giants today or he was with the Giants on Wednesday, I should say. He met with the Falcons already, and that there's no time yet determined, or there's no set date for an interview with the Browns. And the Browns were one of the teams that obviously called. So without telling us, it almost feels like he's almost trying to let you down easy and just be like, well, I got my three teams. It's the Giants. He's supposed to meet with the Titans. He already met with the Falcons. Like, those are the teams he's interested in. And everybody else, like, I'm going to leave you on red, so I'm not going to flat out tell you, which maybe is a more disrespectful way to do it to some people in today's day and age. But it's almost like he's going to leave you on red, but he's not going to tell you no and let you kind of wonder, but it's probably not going to happen. Like, to me, the idea that we have no confirmation that he's interviewing with the Browns is a very telling fact that he's probably not coming here. So as much as that was always the dream for me, as much as I think that was honestly the dream for a lot of Browns fans, it feels highly unlikely at this point that Harbaugh comes here. And I know what people are going to say. I know what these comments on YouTube are going to look like. Well, yeah, I could have told you that. He was never going to come to this dumpster fire. That's what people are going to say. Guys, listen, I never underestimate the power of money. I never underestimate the power of Jimmy Haslam to try to convince somebody. And honestly, like, the Browns should have implored, like, as they did. Like, if whether he comes or not, you want to have that conversation with him at least and like pick his brain on how he would do things here. And I mean, this is one of the better NFL coaching minds in the game. It's good perspective at the very least to have. And yeah, like, was it far-fetched? Sure, but you never know somebody's full motivations. You never know why they choose certain places until they, I guess, tell you. So is the Browns' job the most attractive? Of course not. Like, these jobs he's looking at all maybe have quarterbacks figured out, or there's the potential to have quarterbacks figured out, or they're more talented teams. But I think I held out hope, and I wanted to see it at least get an interview. But at this juncture, given what we know is happening with John Harbaugh and the teams he is visiting with, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that like we should probably cross him off the list. It's probably not happening because there's been a lot of smoke around the Giants, Falcons, and Titans, and almost no smoke around the Browns. It's always just been, we don't know if he's going to get one interview or if he's going to do an interview with the Browns, but he's not ruled it out. Okay, well, if he hasn't ruled it out, but we're not hearing anything about him actually taking an interview with the Browns, I think that kind of tells us all we need to know. So if you're disappointed, that's why you listen to the beginning of the podcast, because Grant Udinski, he might be the guy for you. And there's others that we'll try to talk about as well. And the shows to come as the Browns continue their search for a new head coach. But if you like what you heard, hit that subscribe button. Make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Of course, the number one sports podcast network. Listen, you already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join our Everydayer Club for Locked On Browns with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more. It's just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonbrowns.supercast.com or check out the link in the show notes to learn more. You can also keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being every day at the Locked On Podcast Network. Talk to you on Friday. See you, Cleveland.